First of all, I would like to thank Enea and the Italian presidency for inviting me as a speaker to this conference. I see this as a unique opportunity for us to discuss the new developments of the SET plan. And I'm particularly intrigued to be getting the opportunity to talk on behalf of the civil society. I think this is the first time that I talk on behalf of 5 million people, and probably the last time as well. In my talk, I have been asked to cover the following questions. I will cover the needs and expectations of citizens, as well as the specific research challenges the community is facing to contribute to a competitive, sustainable, and secure energy system. More specifically, I'll focus on the role of citizens and the contribution of social sciences and humanities in the development of low-carbon energy systems for Europe. And I will look at the main factors triggering the behavior of citizens, or to be more correct, sustainable practices towards the new low-carbon energy technologies. And I will look at the main elements for an active participation of citizens in the energy system and related policymaking by introducing a perspective of energy citizenship that I claim will be important, an important means to this end. The process of transition towards a low-carbon energy system is going to be comprehensive and demanding, and it cannot be carried through without substantial public support. This is why the role of citizens and how we understand citizens are important. Until quite recently, it has been common to think of energy users as customers, consumers, as passive actors in the market, or as passive recipients of technologies. The way publics act and have further on been explained in terms of NIMBYism, or knowledge deficit. This standard understanding of publics have many problems attached to it. To mention some, the research literature has quite ardently established that NIMBYism is an ill-defined concept for understanding the way publics make sense of, for instance, planning of wind farms. And we also know that lack of information is seldom why people refuse to act the way we want them to. However, we have other concepts, such as energy citizenship, that promotes a much more comprehensive understanding of users, publics, and their role in sustainable energy transitions. If you look at this concept, the concept of energy citizenship stresses the hybrid relationship that people can have with energy as both users, consumers, protesters, supporters, prosumers, etc. The concept was originally suggested in order to get beyond perceptions of the public as lacking in knowledge and only at best providing passive acceptance of sustainable energy. Thus, the idea of energy citizenship builds on a view of people as active participants to be democratically engaged in sustainable energy transitions. In Divine Rice's own words, energy citizenship is a view of the public that emphasizes awareness of responsibility for climate change, equity and justice in relation to citing controversies, as well as fuel power, and finally, the potential for collective energy actions, including acts of consumption and setting up community renewable energy projects, such as energy cooperatives. This means that low-carbon energy transitions entail a transformation both of the way we live and how energy citizenship is enacted. In the above definition of energy citizenship, there is a strong focus on the community level, which clearly offers possibility of participation in energy decisions also on a fairly practical level. The gradual shift from centralized and fossil-based production to more distributed systems based on renewables will potentially integrate also electricity production into everyday life. This may create new types of interaction between traditional energy suppliers and customers, whose roles might become much more hybridized. Decentralization will lend itself to microgrids, microgeneration, storage, etc. Smart grids may also require a much higher level of interaction and technology literacy of customers. While the human factor in the energy system in the past has been understood as passive, we now see a potential for a conceptual shift. So why, let's see. In the, what does this mean? In the, oops, sorry, I skipped one. Sorry. What does this mean? Well, it means that increasingly policymakers expect and need people to become much more active participants in the energy systems in order to reach ambitious climate and energy efficiency goals. This entails that people should engage practically with energy efficiency measures as well as be supportive of local production of energy. Volatility does not mean that people will have energy produced in new ways and closer to their daily life. If it is to work in a practical way, it will also require more active participation. Ideally, energy users begin buying and selling electricity, offer flexibility, change their consumption patterns, and switch to sustainable modes of supply. Such ambitious shifts in practice certainly cannot be achieved under a conceptual regime where humans simply choose between accepting or rejecting new technologies. Instead, energy, its production, consumption, as well as making of new technologies and their implications should become much more integrated into the fabric of everyday life. It is therefore important to ask, how can this be achieved? And to what extent will the ensuing practices differ across Europe? I will argue that access to such knowledge about energy citizenship seems to be vital to the success of the set plan. When we talk about developing energy citizenship across Europe, it is of course important to keep in mind the diverse character that transitions must have across Europe if they are to succeed. The situation with respect to energy across Europe is quite varied, both in terms of the fuels and the technologies used, the cost, the market organization, and the social practices associated with consumption and production. It is not surprising that the transition process probably will not be the same in Bulgaria as in Sweden, of course. And in some settings, energy is scarce and expensive, while in other regions we have a steady, safe, and relatively cheap supply of energy. This means that public in different regions currently interact with the energy system in very different ways. It is likely that such differences in the experience of engaging with energy prompts a variety of attitudes, norms, perceptions, and practices with respect to low-carbon energy transitions, including how they relate to wind power, solar power, as well as household energy efficiency measures. This means that there is a multitude of what we call energy cultures, which bring considerable diversity with respect to input into the energy dialogues that we need to develop in the future. On the one hand, we face a situation that is so complex, consisting of so many interrelated factors, that it can be referred to as a contextual soup. The concept of energy cultures, on the other hand, is a way of making explicit what is relevant and what is not when we talk about transitions to more sustainable energy systems. The concept integrates economic concerns with social factors in the analysis of energy use of households. The framework suggests that we should study consumer energy behavior through examination of the interaction between cognitive norms, material culture, and energy practices, it should say. Following this line of thought, energy should not only be considered as a standard commodity. Energy is considered a derived demand, and by this I mean that energy is not consumed as such. It's the consequence of other activities such as driving, cooking, cleaning, etc. Feminist studies of technology suggest that overall men are expected to play a more active role in energy dialogues than women, and consequently that their experiences and concerns will be more strongly articulated. We know that men dominate the energy sector as employees in both governing bodies and industry, and I think we see this in this room as well. However, we should be aware that probably women in many households have the main responsibility for energy management in the home, which may provide a stronger base for engagement in energy dialogues, and which also can create some conflict, of course. The expected diversity of energy cultures will most likely also produce a diversity of energy dialogues. This poses considerable challenges with respect to possible alignment of energy dialogues. In this regard, the issue of inclusion into energy dialogues, not only with respect to gender, should be given particular attention. This shows that big societal challenges ahead of us. There are big challenges ahead of us that are important for social scientists to study. For instance, how to include more groups of people into energy dialogues and to shed light on potential lock-ins between low-carbon societies and challenges regarding poverty, equity, knowledge, gender, health, etc. And just to give you a brief example how this is played out in real-life settings. We know from the work of Australian sociologist Yolande Stengers that most smart energy technologies are designed with a stereotypic human actor in mind, a techno-savvy, cost-conscious male that she has named Resource Man. And you can clearly picture this man here. However, we know that in real life it works more like this, where in general most household appliances and energy-related decisions are operated by women. This illustrates the simple fact that most smart energy technologies will have to rely on the active participation and engagement of women in order to work efficiently. And this is just to illustrate that it would be wise to engage more groups of people in energy dialogues and not only base our strategies on reaching this typical resource man. Yes, you've seen this one. So, to my conclusion. We have seen that in order to be able to go from passive users or mere customers to active participation of citizens, we will have to think differently about how to engage users and communities towards new low-carbon energy technologies. One suggestion is to avoid the simplistic and reductionist understandings of users and look more deeply into how to create energy citizenship and to create more inclusive energy dialogues within and between different energy cultures. We need rather to look into how we can organize society so that it, to a greater extent, opens up and arrange for active participation of citizens. We have to look more fundamentally into what policies are working when it comes to implementing new technologies, for instance, solar panels and solar systems, electric cars, etc., and to what extent the introduction of such new technologies have transformative properties in the direction that they create energy citizenship. So one of the main challenges for research and policies is to go beyond the dominant paradigms of acceptance, or what we often call ABC, which are currently flawed in the sense that they define the problem as one of the consumer behavior, that they define the problem as consumer behavior and choice, and the potential policy response as influencing choice. The consequence being that by doing this kind of study, useful data are specified in ways that rule out historically grounded analysis of how relevant social practices and related infrastructures and institutions evolve together. We need to have more focus on the content of sustainable transitions and how to make them more effective. What is working, what is not? How can we make the transition tools that don't work better? To provide the knowledge needed, we have to do comparative research about current energy dialogues in different countries and use this to develop strategies to facilitate new or improved modes of energy dialogue. And last but not least, we need to take social science and humanities perspectives more seriously. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marianne.